Now I've been happy lately, thinking about the good things to come, and I believe it could be something good has begun.
This is Ward and Al on Canada Talks.
Okay, switching gears a little bit here, and yet something very, very important that I think we should talk about more. This gentleman is the subject of a new documentary called An Eye for an Eye. He is a hate crime survivor, a peace activist, and a founder of Global Charity. You can check him out at worldwithouthate.org. Please welcome Rais Bhuiyan. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a great honor.
Well, now, I talk a lot on this show about how I work really hard on myself. I want to be a better person. I want to try harder. And, you know, reading about your story and seeing the documentary, it's one of those things that made me go, I have to keep working. Because when I look at what you have done, I don't know that I could do it. And yet I talk about taking a bad experience and finding the positive and growing. Tell our listeners a bit about An Eye for an Eye and how it came about.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me in your show. Eye for an Eye is a documentary recently came out based on two men's life story. One was a victim of a hate crime, and the other person is the perpetrator who was on a shooting rampage to kill Muslims in Dallas, Texas after 9/11 terrorist attacks. And it's a story about how these two person born and raised in two different parts of the world, how they came together, how one single incident changed their entire life, and how they found peace, love, compassion, and acceptance.
It's amazing.
And we're, of course, talking about, American listeners will probably be familiar with the story of Mark Stroman.
Correct.
And you.
Right.
Yes. Yes. You are. So he shot 3 people, killed 2.
Right.
You survived.
Right.
And it turns out he was very angry right after 9/11 happened. He thought he was going to take his revenge on Muslims, and ended up maybe not always hitting the mark. None of the people he shot were actually even from the Middle East, which is what he was going for.
Right.
You found a way to not only forgive him, but try to help him. That is the part. I want to believe I'm a good person, and I work on it, and I try. I don't know, maybe forgiveness, maybe I could let it go. You tried to have the death penalty rescinded for him. Did you work towards this level? Have you always been someone where forgiveness is in your heart and you do what you can for the other person? How did this come about?
This is a very good question. I was raised in a very, Islamic practicing Muslim family where my parents taught me always to control my tongue and forgive people when if they hurt me. By forgiving, it will end the incident there, and it will give a chance to the perpetrator to think about that I was so mean, I was so hurtful, but still this person, even he had the option to retaliate or to do the same thing, but he chose to forgive. That will give him a chance to ponder, and it ends the violence there. And most likely the person will come back to you today or tomorrow that I'm sorry, what I did, it was wrong. But if I do what he did to me, the cycle keeps going. So in my childhood, that's what my parents taught me, that always try to do the right thing, forgive people, be merciful. So I learned this thing in my childhood, but after I was shot, I was in a practical situation. Now, what do I do? Do I follow what I learned in my childhood, or do I stay sad, depressed, angry, revengeful? So I had to choose, and I believe the teaching was very powerful in my childhood, and it was not easy though, because once you are shot in the face in a foreign country where you went to for additional higher education, no loved one, there is not enough money in your pocket, and the hospital discharged you the next day after you were shot because you didn't have any health insurance, and the hospital was private and expensive. It was hard.
Yeah.
But I had to look at the big picture. I went through a healing process. I forgave him after I got my life back. But the healing process I went through, I grew up mentally, psychologically, and emotionally. And after coming back from Mecca, after performing a religious pilgrimage with my mother, I came back as a changed person, and I deeply thought about my shooter and the incident. And I thought, I suffered terribly. There is no doubt about that. I lost a vision in one eye. I lost my fiance back home. My medical bills went up more than $60,000. And it was one after another one ripple effect. But still, I was able to think that by executing Mark Stroman, my pain and suffering will not go away. We would simply lose a human life without dealing with the root cause. And there's a verse in the Quran, chapter 5, verses 32, says that saving a human life is like saving the entire mankind. And taking a human life is like taking the entire mankind. I was very much inspired, and I thought, yes, I forgave him, but it's not going to create any positive effect in our society. It feels good in my heart that I forgave, but I wanted to create a positive, a new narrative out of this very negative experience. And I thought, I have to go the extra mile and save the human life so that he can get a second chance and he can contribute to society in a positive way. Execution was not the solution.
There are people listening to this interview right now who would say that Islam is a violent religion, that so much of the terrorism going on in the world right now that we see is because of Islam. And they mockingly will call it the religion of peace. We've seen that. You see it in the news. You hear it all the time. When I hear you speak, this is the kind of thing I try to turn those people to. I try to show them people like yourself, people who speak like you do. Obviously, you've been confronted with this mentality before, not just by Stroman, but before and since. How do you respond to that?
That's a very good question as well. There are lots of good people in every religion, but there will always be a few who will justify their bad behavior by using religion as a scapegoat. And there are, these kind of people are available in Islam, in Christianity, in every religion. So because of because of their behavior, we just cannot, give a bad name to a specific religion. That would not be right. I mean, we can also talk about that KKK does not represent Christianity. Mm-hmm. ISIS does not represent 1.5 billion Muslims.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to look at the teaching of the religion, not some of the followers, how they behave. And there's a lot of ignorance out there as well, that there's a lot of misinterpretation of the Quran. And this is what I also come across in different places that people talk about. There's different verses in the Quran. It talks about violence. Yes, Quran does talk about some limited violence, but in a context. You need to understand that part as well. And it allows, but within a context. And whenever there's a situation like this, that a person has the right to defend himself or herself when that person is attacked, and in that situation he or she is only allowed to engage with the other person who attacked him or her first.
Right.
Not you go and start killing people And when you're engaging yourself in a fight, you are not supposed to destroy crops, trees, elderly people, women, children. So you're only allowed to fight with the person who attacked you at first. And if the person surrender, you are supposed to surrender right there and ask that person what you could do to help. So this kind of discussion will, I don't hear much, taking place in different media. We only hear about, okay, one line out of the context. They bring in the discussion and try to portray Islam as a violent religion. So there is a thumb rule. Whenever there is a misunderstanding with one verses, I would ask the listeners, read 10 verses before and 10 verses after of that specific line. That will clarify what that line is talking about. Again, I'm not a scholar, but I can talk from my experience, from my limited knowledge.
But we need more of that. We need more of that.
Right. And
I think people ignore the scholars. I think that they listen to the people when they speak from their heart.
And, there are a lot of ignorance out there as well. And I'm glad that I'm getting an opportunity today to speak from my heart. And I hope that it will help the listeners to understand that no religion preaches violence or hatred. It's the people who use religion as a scapegoat to justify their bad behavior. And that is sad. And it is our duty to come forward and work with the other, learn about other religion, learn about other culture. When we get to know them, we cannot hate them.
Do you know what? I think the most practical thing I have ever heard, and I think this applies to any religious text, because, people also like to, in Christianity, like to cherry pick phrases from the Bible to be like, see, God hates gay people. I think the most practical advice I've ever heard is read 10 lines before and 10 lines after. Because it's true. We love to take things out of context. And that is I think a lot of people don't know what surrounds that line. They just know that line. So I love that. That is a very, very good advice.
We are speaking to Rais Bhuiyan, the subject of a new documentary, An Eye for an Eye. And you can find out more at worldwithouthate.org. Advance tickets now on sale through Cineplex. And one thing I do want to say is this is not a spoiler alert for anyone who knows the history, but you argued in favor of leniency against Mark Stroman, and that did not happen. He was executed. Is it difficult for you now seeing this documentary, as I imagine you have to see it several times? Is it difficult looking back on all of that? And do you see the fact that he was executed, do you see it as a failure?
Oh, interesting.
Well, I do not see it as a complete failure. Even this is a painful past, but there's a lot to learn from that. And history is something that no matter how painful, how sad it is, but there's a lot to learn from there. And how can we move forward so that what happened wrong in the past, it doesn't happen again. So this film actually doesn't make me feel sad, but it inspires me more to go the extra mile, so that those who are in the free world, they're heart filled with ignorance or hate. And I also understand how they struggle on a regular basis to overcome that hate, that anger. So I see this film as a launching pad to help those people to overcome the fear and the ignorance and the challenge they go through every day in their life. Because at the end of Mark Stroman's life, he said that hate is going on everywhere. It has to stop. Hate causes a lifetime of pain. This is the same human being who killed innocent human being out of his anger and out of his ignorance. At the end of his life, he called me brother and he said he loved me.
It's honestly, I cried so much last night, and because it is so inspiring, and it does make you realize, I am one of those, listeners know I'm a bleeding heart liberal, and I'm very like, love will change the world, only love can defeat hate. And a lot of times people are like, Allison, shut up. But I think your story and this story is kind of proof of how powerful love can be, in that this man, before he was executed, did have a change of heart and did completely realize where he had gone wrong. And I mean, you set such a huge example, also with World Without Hate. How did that organization come about?
The campaign I ran to save the life of my attacker, Mark Stroman, we received a tremendous amount of support from all over the world, huge positive energy. And after Mark Stroman was executed, I didn't want to stop there. I wanted to channel this energy, the support, into a non-profit organization. And I founded World Without Hate in 2011 with the hope to eradicate hate and violence and discrimination from this world, and to also promote the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that everyone, no matter who that person or where they came from, what is their background, they're entitled to their basic inherent human rights and dignity. And to promote that idea, and also to make this world a better place for us and for our next generations. I founded this organization, and through our speaking engagement, through the website, through our programs, we try to transform the human hearts, one heart at a time. And we got tremendous amount of requests from all over the world to take our programs. And I travel the world to share my story as a launching pad to inspire people to share their own unique stories, to make connection, to understand the other, and also get to know each other. And it's getting a lot of traction from all over the world. And I also work full-time in IT, but I manage my time in such a way so that I can do both at the same time, because my time is limited. One day I'll be gone, and I want to look back and feel that it was worth of living. The time God gave me, it was worth of living. And I want to look back, and I wanted to feel that I did the best I could to spend my time. And I want everyone to think in that way as well, that your time is limited. And that day you will live this world. How would you like to feel that how your time was spent in this world, what you did, and how you lived, how you are living a legacy for your next generations?
The film is called An Eye for an Eye. And
You make me want to cry, sir, in a good way.
I just tweeted out the website. I just tweeted that out, so you can check it out over there. But it is an eye for an eye -film.com. Check it out, and check it out on our Twitter. We'll put that out more. It is a very important film to see. It's a really, really powerful documentary, and kudos to you on having a mindset that I don't know I would have. Even after seeing the documentary, it's an attitude I don't know that I would have, and I commend you on it.
I just have to reiterate for people, in case you're not getting it, Mark Stroman shot him in the face. He lived and then tried to save Mark Stroman's life. You are such a good person.
I try every day, based on what my parents and my faith taught me. And if I may add one thing, that how Mark Stroman was changed even behind death row. He wrote a long letter to me, and if I may read just one paragraph from
please
from
do.
this letter, that will help the audience to understand that what this human being went through and how he was changed. He wrote this long letter on June 14, 2011 from death row. And in one paragraph, he said that my stepfather embedded some lessons I should have never learned. It has taken me for too long to unlearn some of them, and I'm still working on some of them. I don't know who your parents were, but it is obvious they are wonderful people to lead you to act this way to someone you have every right to hate. And he ended his letter by saying, my whole life, I have believed hope was like a handful of rain. But over the last few weeks, you have given me more hope than I have possessed in all my years of life. Once again, let me thank you for all you have done and are trying to do. with deep respect, Mark Stroman.
It's so beautiful to me, and I just think there's no way people can see this documentary or learn about your story and not want to try harder to be better. I just, it's compassion is easy to talk about and hard to give, I think, and it makes me want to be so much more compassionate.
Will you please? I say come back and talk to us some more, but just keep talking to people in general.
Yeah.
That would mean a lot to us.
That was my promise on my deathbed when I was running towards the hospital, and I felt my time was up. I made a promise to God that if you give me a chance to live, I would dedicate my life for others, especially for the poor, needy, and deprived all over the world. And now I'm trying my best to keep my promise. And as I said, our time is limited.
Yeah.
The film is called An Eye for an Eye.
And we do have to say, if you are in the Toronto area, there is 2 screenings tonight at Canada Square Cinemas, one at 5:20 and one at 7:50. And there, you will be there?
Yes.
At both screenings. You need to see it.
Rais Bhuiyan, thanks for joining us today.
It's a great honor to be in Toronto and at your studio.
The honor was ours.
Oh, absolutely.
We are Ward and Al. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about what's going on in your backyard. And we're going to be reading some of the things you've been saying. Stick around. This is Canada Talks.
Now we see